All right, guys, welcome to Unit 4, the American Revolution. In order for us to really start going through the war itself, we kind of have to go back a little bit. We're going to go back to 1774, the meeting of the First Continental Congress. Again, I know it's a review from last unit, but it's kind of important. So, all colonies except for Georgia sent representatives to Philadelphia. Why not Georgia? Lots of reasons. Some of the bigger ones, it was a long journey, and most of Georgia, as you remember from its foundings, was a military base. So most of them were loyalists anyway. But in the Congress, they voted to stop all trade with England, also known as boycotting, and they asked each colony to form a militia. And again, a militia is a group of essentially weekend warriors, part-time soldiers, who are usually doctors, lawyers, shop owners, farmers, but when emergency or danger happens, they become soldiers. Now, because of that, when the British found out about these militias, especially the one in Massachusetts, General Gage sent a bunch of soldiers to Concord to try to seize the Massachusetts militia weapons. The Sons of Liberty find out about it, and Paul Revere and William Dawes and about 40 other riders that night carry a message through Massachusetts and New Hampshire countryside, alerting the militia members that the regulars are coming or the redcoats are coming. He never said those famous words, the redcoats, the British are coming. The reason he never said the British are coming is because they were all British citizens at this point. I mean, they were not Americans and British. They were loyalists and patriots, but everyone was British. So the whole the British are coming, it's completely fabricated, completely false. In Lexington, they met up with a man named Dr. Samuel Prescott, and the three men, Revere, Dawes, and Prescott, continued on to Concord. Revere never made it. He was captured. Dawes falls and breaks his arm. Captain Prescott, fortunately, is able to reach Concord in time and alert the militiamen there, and they're able to get the weapons out. Eventually, Revere escapes and is able to make his way back to find John Hancock and Samuel Adams and get them out of Massachusetts because there was a warrant issued for their arrest. To this day, Paul Revere is known as a hero of the American Revolution. But is he really? He was one of 40 men, true, a very important member, but does he really deserve any more credit than the other 40 people? I don't know. Now, why is it that Paul Revere was able to escape from the British when he wasn't able to complete his ride? It was because of Lexington and Concord. The shot heard round the world. It was April 19th, 1775, the very next morning at dawn, that the British encountered the Massachusetts militia in Lexington. Nobody knows who fired that first shot. To be honest, it probably wasn't even anyone on the battlefield. But it became known as the start of the American Revolution. About 9 Massachusetts militiamen died. No British soldiers were injured. But it was the spark. It was the starting point of the American Revolution. You can see here is Boston, downtown Boston. Now, Paul Revere rode across the Charles River, went to Charlestown, and all the way up to Lexington here. Whereas Dawes rode out over what's called the Neck of Boston, rode through the land over a bridge, and met up again with Revere here in Lexington. Actually, Dawes took a slightly different route up to Arlington, where Revere went up to Medford, and then down to Arlington or Menotomy. Here they met up with Dr. Samuel Prescott, and it was halfway between here that Revere was captured. Fast forward a little bit, May 10, 1775. Two very important events happen on this day. One, Ethan Allen and Benedict Arnold working together, leading Allen's men, known as the Green Mountain Boys, a militia out of Vermont. They seized the Fort Ticonderoga, which was a heavily fortified British fortress, which used to be owned, it was actually originally built by the French, but they captured it without firing a single shot because they caught the British sleeping. The British officer literally surrendered his sword to Ethan Allen and Benedict Arnold in his pajamas. On that very same day, the Second Continental Congress meets in Philadelphia. They form the Continental Army. and they appoint General George Washington as the commanding general. So on the top left right here, you have the handsome, dapper Ethan Allen, and obviously I'm being sarcastic. And over here, the gentleman, General George Washington, our future first president. One of the earliest and most important battles of the American Revolution was the Battle of Bunker Hill. It was right outside of Boston in Charlestown. The Boston militia seizes Bunker and Breed's Hills on June 6, 1775. The British soldiers are led by General William Howe. The Colonials are led by William Prescott, who you see on the side. It was here that Prescott uttered the famous words, "Don't fire until you see the whites of their eyes." Why would he ask his men to wait so long before firing? Well, they're a militia. They didn't exactly have a whole lot of ammunition or powder. So he wanted to make sure that every single shot counted. The British did eventually win the battle, but they lost over 1,000 soldiers. Colonists only lost 400. So even though the British won the battle at a tremendous odds, General Thomas Gage was quoted as saying, "The loss we have sustained is greater than we can bear." Meaning, if we keep winning battles at this rate, we're going to lose the war. Even though they're winning the battles, they're losing so many men, and the cost is almost not worth it. As you see here, here's downtown Boston as it used to be. Here's Breed's Hill. Here's Bunker Hill on the Charlestown area. Now, Americans were split, and a lot of people really weren't interested in independence yet until some things happened. Now, John Adams, being one of those moderate members, he wasn't exactly convinced of independence. So he and a few others send what's called the Olive Branch Petition, asking for peace on July 5th, 1775. The king rejects the petition, saying, no, the only way there's going to be peace is under my terms. And he was not willing to listen to what the colonials had to say. In February 76, just a few months later, Thomas Paine writes arguably one of the most influential pieces of literature in history, known as Common Sense. And he writes it in common language for every man, woman, and child to be able to read, at least those that could read. And he argues that monarchies are by design corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Over 100,000 copies are sold in 3 months. It becomes the second most populous circulated book in the colonies, second only to the Bible. This inspires many more colonists to call for independence and really gives a jump to the independence movement. So much so that in 1776, Congress not only authorizes each colony to create its own government, another step further away from England, but Henry Lee from Virginia proposes a resolution of free and independent states. And they choose a man named Thomas Jefferson to write this resolution, this declaration. Now, Jefferson had some help from men like Ben Franklin, John Adams, Roger Sherman, Robert Livingston. But Jefferson is the key primary author. Takes him about a month to write. The resolution passes on July 2nd. Declaration is officially adopted on July 4th. John Hancock, being the president of the Continental Congress, as you see here, is the first signer, and he is rumored to have said, now it's not a 100% quote, but it's a rumored quote, that as he wrote with such a large signature, he said, there, I guess King George will be able to read that without his glasses. Saying, taking a very bold stance against the king. A very powerful stance. Now, many of you may have heard this movie, but it was a very good movie on this time period. There was still a difference in opinion over rebellion. Right? At this point, the tide has turned, and almost half of all colonists became patriots. 40 to 45% were only 20 to 30% were true loyalists, loyal to the king. Again, patriots wanted their freedom and independence. Loyalists wanted to stay loyal to the king and crown. There's still about almost half, 40% of all colonists still didn't quite know what to do. They were kind of like on the fence, not sure what they wanted to do, where they wanted to go. That's about it for this screencast. Watch the second one when you are done with the questions.